Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about Bethesda and microtransactions again. Now, microtransactions were a way of funding MMOs. Allows them to give you the game for free, and then you just buy endless DLCs. The reason why that worked was because most people wanted their characters to look individualistic online, and therefore they'd buy clothes, weapons, armor, whatever they needed to make their character into what they wanted it to be. So it was a big selling point. Since if you look at Fortnite funds most of Epic's gaming platform, probably Unreal 2, and it's just endless costumes for your character, just one after another, and sometimes they have link into TV shows or movies or something like that, so you can be Deadpool if you want. So they make a fortune out of these kind of things. Those kind of microtransactions are more about how people want to look in a game than gameplay. We look back at the Oblivion days with the horse armor, same thing there. Since the horse armor itself added very little to the game and cost far more than the horse armor was worth. So microtransactions come with a certain stigma for being ripped off, but the people that buy it get addicted to where they look, how they want their game to be. If you look at, say, any of the mods, for instance, right, the armor mods for the Skyrim, Oblivion, anything, there's an awful lot of these cosmetic mods out there. So you can see there is a big market for cosmetic, mods, armor, weapons, whatever. It's massive. Even when you're playing single player, there's a massive market. But the argument for microtransactions for multiplayer makes sense. Because in multiplayer, they want people to keep playing the game and keep buying bits. And if they're just buying the game once, eventually the person who made the game will run out of money and have to close the server. So having people buy these little cosmetic items on a regular basis keeps the doors open, so to speak. It keeps the game running on the server. The same isn't true for single player games. Single player games, you buy once, the developer develops it, maintains it and then drops it, but the game still gets played. It doesn't suddenly stop being played because the developers drops it. So single play is a very different argument. The horse armor for Oblivion was considered a bit of a rip-off because it was quite expensive for what it was. It's still a joke today. Now if you look at other DLCs like Far Harbour, Nuka World, or Shivering Isles, they were more what people expected for a single player game. And I think we need to get away from assuming, because Bethesda did go down the microtransactions route for their single player games and it wasn't very popular. Horse Armor had a reputation for being a bit of a rip-off. So people who brought it didn't feel they were getting the money's worth. Now it's okay for DLCs and stuff, not DLCs, microtransactions and minor cosmetic mods for online play, because they need to keep the money rolling and to keep the doors open. But that's not true of single player. In single player games, we tend to just play the game whether the doors are open on the developer's side or not. If they're still developing it or not makes no difference to us. We'll still play the game. Now, if you actually look at, closely at, Elder Scrolls Online, they're churning out wave after wave after wave of DLCs that people could have. Same with Fortnite. That keeps the doors open, funds it, makes it a real money spinner. But those kind of games are losing popularity now. There's a drift back to single player again because people are getting sick of the same old. They've played everything to death. They haven't introduced anything new in a long time. Now, if you look at single player games, trying to introduce that online in their Bethesda store proved to be very unpopular with a lot of people. Because people don't want to be wasting lots of money in single player because who's going to see them? Nobody's going to see them. They can't show off, with their latest outfit, which is what a lot of people were doing. They want gameplay. People who play single player games tend to want something very, very different than what they're wanting online for different reasons. Online, you want to show off your latest costume, look good, have a big sword, whatever else. In single player, you want something interesting to do. So there's two different markets there. Bethesda trying to treat their single player games like they might treat Elder Scrolls Online was a mistake. But they knew the path forward. They knew it. When they did Knights of the Nine, the Shivering Isles and all the other DLCs, Dragonborn, that was what people expect from developers. Not at horse armour. Not cosmetic mods. This isn't what they expect from developers. So these microtransactions are exactly the wrong approach when you come into official DLCs. You do not want to be messing with these small custom things, unless you're actually going to be doing something like YouTube maybe and showing off your gameplay. Because the rest of it, who cares? Who cares? I mean, half the time people walk around with what is the best armour in the game. And, I mean, if they're like me, you're not even looking in the third person, you're in the first person, so you don't see what you're wearing anyway. But I would put it to where Bethesda, if they're watching this, the large DLCs are what players want to see. Or things that add to the game as a whole. Preferably things that add to the whole game and not just one story and it's done. Like the Anchorage, for instance, storyline, for Fallout 3. I mean, that was alright, but once it was over, it was done. You never look back at it. So games that make a difference to DLCs that make a difference to the game as a whole, they're what people like. I would also point out that in single player, people tend to want to just be left to play on their own. Although there are some cases where it's nice to be able to just link up with friends. I mean, I think Dark Souls had a feature like that. And a few other games, where you could go to a location or turn on a feature and you could suddenly be with a friend in the game. That's kind of cool. But it's not why people play single player. Single players play for very different reasons. And I think it's important that we actually look at this now and we think to ourselves, multiplayer is about being with your friends, looking good, doing stuff together. Single player is about being solo. And I think the two things should be identified as two completely separate markets. Because at the end of the day, I would not want to be paying £8 for horse armour. I would much rather be paying £12 for a bigger DLC. And when you see the price of some of these outfits and what you've got to pay, because these microtransactions usually use in-game currency, and in-game currency is notoriously bad value. So it's a way of hiding the true cost. You might pay £10 for enough credits to buy just one outfit. That means it's cost £10. You could get you can get a large DLC for that back in the day. So yeah. So I think Bethesda really do need to understand, right, that single-player games have a different demands from multiplayer, and that when they're doing Dragonborn DLC, that's what we want. Something that size that makes that much difference and adds to the game worlds. If you're doing something that doesn't add to the game world, but it's just a single storyline, then maybe it'd be alright, but probably wouldn't be as popular as one of the bigger DLCs you get that adds a world space or new features to the world. Like, say, like Dawnguard did. Like, Dawnguard added a lot of vampirism features to the world. So that was a good DLC as well. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think. Post your comments below.